Good afternoon, everybody. How the heck you doing this fine day? Steve Dotto here, and I am some kind of excited because we're back. Webinar Wednesday is back, but even more than Webinar Wednesday being back, Webinar Wednesday is back with a whole new thing happening. Yes, indeed. We are now doing Webinar Wednesday here live on YouTube, which is totally different for me. It seems kind of strange for me to be talking about doing a webinar in a live stream, but really, what we do is when you do a regular webinar, it's a form of a live stream. And this gives us an opportunity to reach a far larger audience. So welcome one and all. This is, as I said, this is going to be the first time that we're delivering Webinar Wednesday as a live stream. So you're going to have to bear with us as we work our way through the process. Speaking of working our way through the process, let me bring my team member on, April. How are you doing, April?
I'm good. Hey, everybody.
Yeah,
so good to see you.
Are you anxious because we're going to have like way more people than normal?
No, I'm really excited. There's a lot of Canadians in the house. Woo woo.
Of course, there's a lot of Canadians in the house. Yeah, well,
it's great to see everybody.
I haven't even looked at. I see the first one I see is Prussia. So there we go. Oslo, Norway, and Finland, and oh my goodness, people from all over. So welcome. So let me fill you guys all in on kind of what for those of you who are new to us, who have never been on a Webinar Wednesday before, for the last 4 years here on Dottotech in our community, we have delivered a free tutorial webinar pretty much every Wednesday. We do about 45 a year, 43 to 45 of them a year. This is our 147th or so, or 143rd of these that we've done. So it's a tutorial webinar on some aspect of productivity. Today, we're going to be talking about building a better browser, how you expand the capabilities of your web browser. And they're simple tutorials. We do what's called a hybrid format, where we join you live, talk to you a little bit, answer a few questions, welcome you all in, get everybody settled, and then I pre-record a little bit of a demo or a training. In this case, we have about a 20-minute training where I go through the content, and the reason I pre-record it is to keep us on time, A, but B, I can do a much better job of explaining concepts if I can edit the video a little bit before. So we actually show you some screens, etc. Very similar to the normal videos that we would deliver on YouTube, but not quite as polished and designed to be delivered live. While that is running, April and I are here with you live still, although we're not on camera. We are answering questions and comments. So what I like to think of this is increasing the information density, trying to respect your time as well as our effort. If we can answer a lot of the questions that you have while the video is running, that saves us time for the Q&A, so we can pack more information into a shorter period of time. So that's the hybrid format that we've done. So that's going to be one of the interesting points of this. Webinar tools allow us to upload the video to the webinar tool and then stream it in. We are going live today using the tool that we're using to stream to you live today. Is called StreamYard, and it won't allow us to upload the video to its own servers and serve it. So we're going to be serving the video from YouTube, but I can't just play it in the window. I have to play it on my browser, in a browser window on my computer, and then upload it to you. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to work okay. We've done everything we can to maximize the chance of success, but we will see. We'll see. So we have about a 20-minute video coming up in just a few moments. So that's the plan. So, and then we'll do Q&A at the end, and then this video will be left online for 48 hours here on YouTube, so that if you want to watch the replay or if you want to share it with friends, you can do so. And then after that, we archive it, and it's there forever for the benefit of our Patreons, which brings me to a big shout out to our Patreon community. This Dottotech channel is supported through the generosity of you folks through the Patreon, the crowdfunding site Patreon. And there are so many of you here. If you are a patron, let us know in the chat, shout out to us. But we just want to send you a great big thanks for your support. Our patrons are the lifeblood of this channel. Now, the patrons keep us going, keep us producing free content of the sort that we are delivering to you today. And in return, and they come to Patreon and they sign up for it. They give us $10 a month, and that pays our bills and keeps us going. And we have perks in return. We actually have some awesome perks that we have available for you as well. And the perks include the Webinar Wednesday archives, the biggest perk that we offer. So we take each one of these trainings and tutorials. This is, as I say, I think our 143rd of these, and they are all available to our patrons as a part of their support. So we thank you, all of you who are our patrons here. And April, there's a ton of them already, right? Saying hello. So thank you so much to all of you for your ongoing support. We appreciate it. And if you are considering supporting us on Dottotech, that we appreciate you taking a look at patreon.com/Dottotech. We'll talk more about that later. But what I want to do right now is just to thank those of you who are patrons for your ongoing support. So April, are you ready for this? Are you kind of excited?
I am. And you know what? Like we have friends from Czech. We have even our friends that are having a hard time in California with all the smoke and the fires. We have some of those friends on here today. Like we are all over the world today. So it's awesome to see everybody.
We won't even talk about the craziness that is the world today.
No.
I mean, my goodness, right now, the air quality here in Vancouver, where I live, is just so because of the fires in Washington. The people hear a lot about the fires in California. There's a ton in Washington state as well. Our friends in California, of course, are suffering through fires. But then our friends in the Midwest, they got snow like crazy. They just got in Alberta, they got slammed by snow. It's February the 12th today. Is it the 12th?
No, isn't it September?
February 9th. September 9th.
I'm like, it is not. It might feel like February there, but I think we're still in September. I'm not ready for winter, guy.
No, I have what I call year dyslexia. It's not really. September for me and January, I always get confused. I don't know where February came from, but because the start of the school year and the start of the calendar year, I get confused. So it's
interesting.
It's an issue. It's an issue.
I'm thinking it might be a little bit of an issue. It's just, I don't.
It's far from my only issue, but it's an issue.
True. Sweden, we have, oh my goodness, Sweden, Scotland, we have John there.
Superb. Okay. Awesome. So as we said, this is when we last saw you on Webinar Wednesday in, what was it? June, May?
No, June. It was in July.
We did webinars in July? We took our hiatus from Webinar Wednesday in July. That's right. We told you that we'd be switching things up. So we've been doing them historically. We used to use Webinar Jam. We've used Zoom. For the last little while, we've been using Demio, which we are really pleased with as a webinar package. But I wanted to expand the reach and to streamline things and to take advantage. I think live streaming, I think that video, is just going to increasingly become an important player in our entire online space. And these live streaming applications are becoming so robust. The biggest challenge we still had with Demio at the end of the day was WebRTC, was the fact that sometimes people would have, depending on the browser that they were connecting with, they might have some issues. They might have a little bit of lag. They might have trouble with their sound. Sometimes the video would stop playing and they would have they would just have some issues. Now delivering it here on YouTube, I think that we'll eliminate most of those issues, because as far as playback goes, YouTube Live seems to be about as stable a platform as we can hope for. So that's kind of the thought process behind switching over to live. So we'll be looking forward to your comments and your feedback on whether or not this is going to work for you as we do it this week, for the next few weeks as we test things out. So let's move over into our topic of the day. Today we're going to be talking about maximizing your web browser, or building a better browser. There is nothing that we use on our computer more than we use our browser these days. Your web browser has just become the essential tool as far as things go. I can remember back when I used to do the TV show, when we first were showing Internet Explorer and in the very first Netscape Navigator, and we were first working with browsers. I had no idea back then that they would become almost like the operating system that gives us full access to everything that we work with online. So we're going to take a look at different ways that you can customize your browser. Oh geez, sorry, I just had a LastPass is trying to update on my computer right now. Isn't that
well, that's always the case, right? So it's always technology.
So I pre-recorded the video, so we're going to jump into that for the next 20 minutes or so. It'll run. While it's going, we'll be here to answer questions. If you have to drop out at any reason, the replay will be available almost immediately after this the live stream is done. It'll be available for 48 hours here, after which it will be available to you if you are one of our patrons on Patreon. If you don't want to write down all of the different links and the different tools that I show you today, we have a digest of all of the links, which is available. If you registered for us and you registered through our website to attend today, you will automatically get an email. If not, April will drop a link right now in the chat where you can sign up to get all of the resources emailed to you post webinar as soon as we are done. And that will also put you in the mix for next week's webinar, which we're going to be talking about better security solutions. But more on that later. So let's get going. Let's jump into the training today. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. So you're going to have to, yeah.
I'm going to go mute. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to
send us sometimes video now, for me.
And we will see you in chat and back here in 22 minutes. Everybody wants us to use their browser. Google wants us to use Chrome. Apple wants us to use Safari. The folks at Firefox want us to use the Firefox browser. There's the Brave browser. Microsoft has the Edge browser. Everybody's got a browser, and they give it to us for free. And they want us to use it, and they invest a lot in making them work. Doesn't that concern you? It concerns me. But the browser has become such an important part of our own personal productivity system. We all use a browser on a daily basis. It is our window to the online world, and they've become a chameleon of sorts. Browsers morph and change their capabilities depending on the tasks that we place in front of them. And as we add more capabilities to the internet in general, browsers need to modify in order to take advantage of or to give us access to new features and new tools. Consequently, the browser that we get when we download a browser from any service provider is just the vanilla version. We take that browser and we modify it so that we can build a better browser. That's what we're going to look at today, is we're going to discover how to build a better browser. I am really glad that you are with me today, and I hope that you're going to get a lot of value out of this. So what we'll do is we'll start by talking about installing extensions and adding additional capabilities to your web browser, where you find those capabilities and how they're installed in all the web browsers, because as I say, it's a very similar process. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the different types of add-ons that you can do. Basic extensions, which I'm going to start with, but we'll also talk about something called web apps, which are more advanced kind of full environments where your entire web browser changes to be much more like an application rather than utility. But we'll start with this additional functionality, these utilities that you add to your browser. This is my Chrome browser open up, and I use Chrome a substantial percentage of the time, but I try and switch back and forth between all the browsers just so that I can test them out a lot. I think most of us will have one main browser and then kind of a backup browser, because sometimes some applications work better in one browser rather than another browser. And so you're going to want to be at least functional in, I would say, two browsers is a good way to do things. So we'll start with Chrome, which is the most popular current browser in the marketplace. And you see it and you recognize it. It looks very similar, I'm sure, to your own setup. Now, I've customized mine somewhat, where I've got my favorites bar here along the bottom, which are the websites like my bookmarks that I use on a regular basis. But up here in the top, right beside the search bar, are all of the add-ons or all of the plugins, the extensions that I've added into Chrome that I use on a daily basis. Now, I'll talk you through what my favorite ones are, but you'll see as we go through all of the browsers that there's a consistency. I use the Evernote Web Clipper, I use LastPass, I use Grammarly, I use Agora Pulse. There's a series of these that I use, and you can see them all here. Now, because I test so many different browser extensions, etc., I've got tons of them that I've downloaded. Now, with your browser, you can always access your extensions through multiple different menu options. You can always, within your browser, go under the Preferences menu, and within Preferences, you will find extensions in Chrome or some similar name in the other browsers. Similarly, if you don't want to go through that menu there, most of the browsers now have a kind of a pop-out or a menu system in the top of the menu bar here that allows you to go into your settings here, or in my case here, I've got this little extension that's like a little puzzle piece That tells you that it's extensions. This allows me quick access to go in and manage the extensions that I've installed in my browser. So let's start there because I don't want to show off, but as you can see, I have a lot of extensions installed. But notice, very few of them are toggled on. The ones that are blue are actually enabled on my browser. The rest of them are turned off. And I've just installed them at different times to test them. And then I haven't removed them because sometimes I need to go back because I'm answering a question that somebody has and I want to enable them for some reason. But this is the library of extensions. This just gives you like a sample of how many extensions, how much functionality you can add to your browser. Now, if I wanted to add something new that wasn't installed here already, I would simply go under the menu and I would go to the Chrome store. Apple has its own store. Safari has its, Firefox has its own store. But I would go to one of these stores and I would search for the extension that I want to install. Once it's installed, usually it's automatically available in the browser and it will appear back here in the top menu bar or wherever the browser extensions appear in your web browser. So let me show you. Let's do it. But instead of doing it in Chrome, instead, let's go over into, let me see, I'm in Safari here, Brave, I've got 3 browsers. Let's go into Firefox because looking at Firefox, I don't use Firefox as much, but I see that I've only got LastPass installed. I don't have very many browser extensions installed here. So let's see if we can walk through installing one of the browser extensions that I like to use. Well, let's install my grammar checker. Let's install Grammarly, which I use because I always make typos and I always need correction. So Grammarly installs, and what it does is then it adds some extra functionality when I'm in any browser window, when I'm doing email or anything in my browser or writing a response, it's checking the grammar for me, which saves me from embarrassment on a regular basis. So I'm going, remember how I mentioned that there's always the toolbar now on the right-hand side? I'm going over here and clicking on the hamburger menu, which pops this down, and I can see right here, add-ons. And I click on the add-ons, and now I can personalize Firefox. This has taken me to Firefox's own extension store. So I'm going to just type in here a quick search, and I'm going to type in Grammarly, and hit return. And let's see the results. There it is. Grammarly for Firefox comes up. I click on it, and this is how easy it is to install. I click add to Firefox. Now, in a lot of cases, the functionality will automatically be there. In other cases, you have to log in. You can see here, it isn't active yet. I have to activate Grammarly, and it's logged in. Just as a complete sidebar, you see what's happened here is all of the web browsers now, when you log in to any accounts, they try and save your password strings for you in their own password manager. This is something that I highly recommend you don't do. Don't do this in Chrome. Don't do this in Brave. Don't do this in Safari. Don't do this in Firefox. Don't do this in Edge. Don't do this in any of the applications. I would vastly prefer that we all use a proper password manager. 1Password, LastPass, KeePass. Use a dedicated password manager rather than relying on the password manager built into the web browser. It's not their specialty. Security is simply not their specialty. Instead, let's use a company whose security is their specialty, like a dedicated password tool. Back to our regularly scheduled programming now. I'm going to actually say here, never save. There we go. But now you can see that it has been installed and it's available for me as I work. Now, a tool like Grammarly will constantly monitor what's happening as you're typing into different text boxes in your browser, and it will do spell checking and it will do grammar checking for you, and it will look for typos and that sort of stuff, and it will alert you when you make them. So this is a case where it's not an application that we use, but a service that helps to support whatever activity we're on. Most of the extensions that we use within our browser, when we build a better browser, most of the extensions that we use will be just this sort of tool, where they add some functionality at different times to make our browser a little bit more useful. And that can, in my case, the ones that I use the most and are most popular, I'm going to just head back to Chrome here, are things like LastPass, which is my password manager, which is always available, but only when I log in. I only use it for a very short period of time every day if I'm logging into a brand new account. A tool like Evernote. Now, we've got videos on Evernote. I won't go into detail with you on what the Evernote Web Clipper does, but the Evernote Web Clipper will allow me to capture and to grab a screenshot of a different site that I'm at, to take a picture and to snap that information so that I can save it for the future. So I use it as a research tool. Grammarly, which we've already explained. I use the Agora Pulse plugin, which when I'm visiting a website allows me to quickly socially share, to create a tweet or to create a post, a quick post from something that I happen to see that is of universal interest to my community. So adding little bits of functionality, and that extends sometimes into dedicated applications. So if you, for example, I use YouTube, I publish on YouTube all of the time. I have two tools that are extensions that are accounts that I've signed up for that add to the functionality of YouTube as a publisher in YouTube. One of them is called TubeBuddy, and the other is called vidIQ. And when I go to my YouTube dashboard, so this probably looks a little bit different than yours. This is a content creator's dashboard. But you see here at the top, I've got these two extra menus that you wouldn't have if you were just signing up and you didn't have the extensions installed. This one here is from vidIQ, and it gives me a snapshot of all of the different analytics that's happening at that particular moment within the last hour or so on my channel. So I can see how many views I've had in the last period of time, and I can see all of those different trends. And over here, we've got the TubeBuddy add-on as well. And both of them also appear not just on my main page, but when I'm in actually editing and creating my content for my browser, they're in providing content and its suggestions. So for example, if I go down here, this might look a little bit busy, but trust me, this is very valuable. Down here, this is telling me about the different tags and the amount of searches that are done on all of the different tags that I have. And these little colored icons, they come from TubeBuddy and they come from vidIQ, and they're telling me where my video ranks in search for those particular terms and what the velocity of search is for those different terms. So I have built a better browser for myself by using extensions that are relevant to the tasks that I have on a daily basis. Now, if you're not a YouTube content creator, these particular extensions will do you no good, but LastPass is probably useful to you. Grammarly is probably useful to you. You might even decide to have fun and install something like the Bitmoji extension, which allows you to access your Bitmoji account so you can put funny little graphics in if you're posting comments on Facebook, etc. You get the idea. Basically, browser extensions extend the capability of your browser. Now, I'm going to share with you in a follow-up email, if you've signed up for our follow-up, a list of the most popular browser extensions, which interestingly, all of the different searches that I did came up with lists of 10 and 20 browser extensions that they think are the absolute best, and none of them I use. Everybody has got their own collection of browser extensions that they use, and I really look forward to seeing in chat which ones you like the best. But this gets you on the journey to discovering the ones that are going to work best for you, and I will share with you my list of my favorites and why. And we've got several videos on how a couple of them work as well. Now, that's the basic story on browser extensions. But increasingly, as the web functionality is increased overall, we're starting to see something called web apps as well. Now, a web app is like an extension on steroids. It's a far more powerful version of an extension. I guess one of the best examples of a web app would be if you use Gmail within the browser. When you go into Gmail, you have all sorts of different menus and different options that are available to you right within the Gmail app or within Google Docs as you're working in a word processor, or the spreadsheet app in Google Sheets. Those are all web apps, and many companies are now building full applications built around a browser engine. So you will sometimes get a little bit confused, I think, between what's a web app and what is a browser extension. But the easiest way to kind of understand it, I think, is extensions will appear here in the menu bar as an add-on within your browser. Web apps are sites that you visit that have full functionality. You feel like you're in a real application. That might not be technically 100% the way that they define it online, but it's the easiest way that you and I can understand the difference between web apps and browser extensions and understand where they fit. Now, this brings us to the point of making a decision. If you're going to build a better browser, which browser should you be building a better version of? Because there are so many to choose from. I mean, we've just here shared with you a little bit about Chrome. We've also got Firefox installed. We have Safari, which is the Mac only one, installed. We have the Brave browser installed, which is gaining traction on an ongoing basis and is really the darling of the internet today. Firefox, there's all of these different choices. Microsoft has finally abandoned the ill fated Internet Explorer and now has Edge. So, how do we make the decision on which browser is going to be the one that we want to invest our time and energy in? I think that there's three main points, and your order might be slightly different than the order that I'm going to share this in, and most certainly it will probably be different. But I think it comes down to stability and compatibility, speed, and privacy and security. Those are the three big selling points that the different browser companies or the different browser manufacturers are going to celebrate their product based on. And let's begin with stability and compatibility because that's the one that's most important to me. So, stability and compatibility means which applications are you using that the browser is most stable with? We've delivered hundreds of webinars in the past, and different browsers would work well with different webinar packages. So, often my main browser would be chosen based on which one worked best with which webinar package I was working on. Now, that's gone by the wayside. Of course, now since we're live streaming this, it doesn't matter as much anymore, but that's been replaced by which browser works best with our framework tool, the tool that we use for building our website. The tool that we're using is having some issues with Google Chrome right now. So we have to have Safari, and or not Safari, excuse me, we have to use Firefox with it in order for it to work really well. It performs best in Firefox. So depending if you have a specialty application that you use that works best with one flavor of a browser, which will often be the case, that will be one of your decision making points on choosing one of your browsers if you follow my rule of kind of having a two browser rule so you always can have some options. Stability and compatibility, number one. The second is performance. Some of the browsers really bog down. Now, this is less of an issue with fairly modern computers. The horsepower that we have in our desktop computers today is so profound that it overcomes many of the issues that people have with their browser. And almost without fail, when you install a new browser, everybody goes, it's so snappy and fast. Well, of course it is because you haven't installed all of the different plugins and add ons that are going to start to slow it down that you will have done after a period of time. But people are always looking for a faster browser. You're always going to find lots and lots of reports online of which is the fastest browser. And if that's really important to you, speed might be a consideration. But for most people, the major consideration is the amount of privacy and security that a browser provides. And that's where a browser like the Brave browser is really rising to the top of the heap as far as a lot of people are concerned, because it is built first and foremost with a philosophy of providing additional privacy to the people who use the browser. And a lot of that privacy is how well other services are able to track your web wanderings through cookies and monitoring your different wanderings online. Brave steps up and says, we are going to protect your privacy above all. And a lot of people appreciate that. And so, as you're making your decision, you'll have to make a decision based on, or one of the criteria you'll make your decision on is based on how much privacy a browser is going to provide you. But if you're looking at that, then you also have to recognize that there are other things that you can do within the browser environment that can increase your privacy. One of the places that most of us feel most at risk as far as privacy is concerned, or most maybe abused as far as privacy is concerned, is when we do web searches. When we go to Google and we do a web search, how Google tends to then, how we suddenly start getting ads and Facebook and all these other places based on the searches that we've done online. Now you can close some of that down by limiting cookies and by using a tool like the Brave browser, but just the web tool, just the search tool that you use can also make a difference. And here's where you can customize your browser in ways that you might stay with an existing browser but increase your privacy. Allow me to show you. All the browsers have this capability within them. I'm in Chrome right now. If I go into preferences, if I do a web search in Chrome, I'm going to go to Google, as you would expect. But if I go here in my settings and I choose search engine, watch what Google gives me, or watch what Chrome gives me the option. It allows me to manage and to use, rather than Google as my main search engine, it allows me to use Microsoft's Bing search engine. or DuckDuckGo, which is a very much more secure and private search engine that's available, which we also, by the way, have a video on YouTube, which I will share with you, which shows you how you can protect your privacy more by choosing the search engine. So regardless of which browser you use, you have the ability to be able to choose. I'm in Safari here. Guess what I can do in Safari? I go into preferences in Safari and look, it has the exact same option. Go into search, I can choose DuckDuckGo or Google or Yahoo if I want to search. Well, you want to see more examples? Let's go into the Brave browser itself, the famous mentioned Brave browser. And we go in there and we go into search engine and we can choose the different search engines. So you have control over so many different aspects of your online wanderings when you start to customize your browser and when you start to look in and see exactly what you have control of, regardless of which browser you choose. Now, let me wrap things up. We're getting a little bit long here. So I promised that I would tell you what my favorite browser extensions are that I use. And it's a very vanilla list if it be honest. I hope I don't disappoint anybody, but the ones that I install first, the first two that I install without fail is LastPass and the Evernote Web Clipper. And we have videos on both of those where I talk about the Evernote Web Clipper for doing research and LastPass for managing all of my different passwords. Then I installed Grammarly because I'm a terrible speller and it's the tool that I trust and that I use to help improve and reduce the number of typos that I have in all of my communications. I install Agora Pulse, which allows me to share in social and especially in Twitter, different interesting things that I find with my community. So, and that is it as far as my general classic extensions. Then more specific ones for distinct products, I install a tool called Mixmax, which again, we have a video on, which is a very light CRM for Gmail that allows me to do templates for Gmail and to track conversations within Gmail and to help kind of stay on top of my conversations in Gmail. So it's Mixmax, which is the tool specifically for Gmail. I have also installed TubeBuddy and vidIQ, which help me publishing my YouTube videos more effectively, making sure I have the proper search, the proper keywords and the proper tags, and that I'm monitoring and I'm evaluating my analytics more effectively. So those are the tools that I install. We'll have a list of them all, and I'm looking forward to hearing which things you do to extend your browser to make it more efficient for you as well. And we are back. There we go. We made it through the first one. Kind of, we're through. Good heavens. Okay. How are we doing, April? Can you hear me? No, your mic's still muted.
Oh, you know what?
You're up now.
It was muted. Yeah. So yeah, no, it was good. It was good. A great chat, lots of great questions, and I thought it was great. You know what? Knock on wood, we tested it before, so the sound I thought was great too. Sounded just like we in Demio.
Technically speaking, yeah, the streaming seemed to work fine for the most part. The odd person had a couple little issues with their audio early on. The interface for us for handling questions and the chat is slightly different. A little bit more difficult for us to capture questions, identify them for the future. So that is something. And also replying to comments, we don't automatically mention people who were replying comments, so we had to type that in ourselves. So that was a little bit more of a challenge, but overall, not too bad. So far so good. So let's see how well we now answer a few questions. Now here's something there's one question that came up. Artists and several other people mentioned when we commented on that you shouldn't use your web browser as a password manager. Some of you went, "Oh, I've been doing that, and now it makes sense. I don't want to do it. So how do I get my passwords out of it?" I don't know. I'm going to check it out, and we will include, before we send out the email, we'll send a link on how to remove them. So if you haven't registered for the email with the resources, make sure you register, and we will make sure before we send it out that we include instructions on how you remove your existing passwords from the different web browsers. I might even bang together a really quick video to explain that, because that's a great question, and it's something that if you haven't been doing. It was pointed out, I can't remember who pointed it out, but one of our community members pointed out that if your device is ever stolen, that all of those passwords and stuff are in the browser. So it's far less secure, which is a darn good reason not to do that. So okay, so that's that. Once again, before we go on, a big thank and shout out to all of our patrons at Patreon. This is a prime example of the support that you guys are giving us. Is us giving us the ability to create tutorials like this. So thanks so much to all of you who support us at patreon.com/Dottotech. This video, this webinar will be available now for 48 hours if you want to watch it again, and after that, it will be archived for our patrons through the Webinar Wednesday archives. So it'll be there for you as well. So thanks again to you all. All right. I think, next week. So one of the things with switching over from a classic webinar package is people don't technically have to register for every one of these live streams, because if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, you will get notification, although YouTube is somewhat iffy with sending out the notifications. But we have a system where if you do register, we will send you an email reminder, plus we will send you all of the resources afterwards. So I encourage you to continue to just enter your email address and to register as per normal for these webinars. But you don't necessarily have to, because you can just subscribe to the channel and you will gain access through that as well. So, but you won't get the reminders, and you won't get to be able to add it instantly to your calendar as the tool that we are using will allow. So that's just one kind of a slight administrative change in how we manage the webinars. So shall we get to some questions?
Yeah. So,
You're probably not going to be able to stick the questions up on screen the way we had, because in the past, but do you have them written down?
Well, I didn't handwrite them. I copied and pasted them. So.
Oh, okay.
All right. So one question was, do browser extensions slow down internet speed?
They don't necessarily slow down the internet speed, but they will slow down over time. They definitely will impact the browser's performance. Typically speaking, when we install a fresh version of the browser, we're impressed with how quickly everything runs and how fast it runs. But the more tabs that we have open and the more things that we have active within the browser, the more it will slow down. I don't know technically. I'm sure there are some extensions that make almost no difference in the performance, but everything you add to a browser is going to affect its performance somewhat. I say this with a caveat. The computers today are so darn powerful that it probably doesn't make that big a difference. We get velocitized to the speed of the tools that we use. And whenever we get a new computer or a new phone or we install a new browser, we always go, oh, wow, that's fast. And then very quickly, we're used to the speed. It's like driving your car at highway speeds. You very quickly get used to how fast you're going. So it's often something which is more, it's kind of more psychosomatic, is that the right word? But it's in your own head that it's going slower than it actually is. Computers today kind of just, they chug along so powerfully. So I never worry about adding a few extensions slowing down my computer. I mean, you saw my Chrome, how many extensions I have installed. Now, most of them are not active, but when I delete a whole bunch, I don't notice any performance change.
Okay, great. How do the browser extension programmers make any money if they're all free?
Well, that's a really good question. So most of them are attached to another service that is related. So, for example, my Evernote Web Clipper. So I use Evernote Web Clipper so that I can capture information from websites and store it in Evernote, so I have quick access to that information if I need it. So it's archived for me. Well, that's only useful if I use Evernote. It's having the web clipper. Now, there's a free version of Evernote, but very quickly, if you're clipping a lot of content, you'll fill up your free storage, so you'll upgrade to one of the paid versions. So often you will find a logical path. A lot of the other tools are kind of lost leaders that will give you limited access to some of the functionality of the tool that will lead to that tool, you installing that tool. So a tool like Grammarly, which you can install for free, will have limited functionality compared to the full version that I say pay for. So that's it's again a little bit of a lost leader to get into it. Other ones are just direct. It's only going to work if you have the account. Mixmax, TubeBuddy, those only work if you have the account with those individual tools. And some of the smaller ones, they're just kind of projects that people have done that they've put out there for the common good. That they just, here's a tool. Like I've got a tool that will allow me to test to see what Facebook pixels are on any page to see what's there. It's a programmer's tool for if you're running lots of Facebook ads to make sure your pixels firing correctly. There'd be no reason for anybody to charge for that because nobody would pay for it because it does such a small, simple vertical application. And in that case, people just put it out there just for the common good.
All right. What is your thoughts on the Edge browser?
I like the Edge browser. I installed it. I haven't historically, and I got to admit, I enter looking at the Edge browser with a little bit of a jaundiced eye because I have never been a fan of Microsoft's foray into the browser world. Internet Explorer was for many years the bane of my existence, as it was the bane of many of your existences. So when Microsoft said they're going to do a new one, it was like, okay, fine, I'm not going to trust you. However, they did build it on Chromium. Now, this is a little bit confusing, so stay with me for a second. Google has a framework called Chromium that the Chrome browser, that the Brave browser, and Microsoft Edge, as well as others, are built upon. It's not built on Chrome, it's built on Chromium, which is this open source set of rules and kind of this construction kit. It means that the same plugins or the same add-ons work across multiple browsers. So you know how I went to the Safari store to install a Safari add-on or the Firefox store? Those are vertical only for those applications, but the Chrome Web Store will allow you to install Chrome applications in Chrome extensions in Chrome, same ones for Brave, same ones for Edge. So there's a lot more compatibility with the Edge browser. It's slick. It seems to be stable. I've used it. People like it. I think it's a good choice.
All right. How can password? So that I actually have Artis's question here. So I will pass on that. You had mentioned about removing the passwords from your browsers.
Yeah, we're gonna show you that.
Does Google qualify or verify Chrome extensions that are available to install, or is it a free for all?
I believe it's a free for all. I can't say for sure because we've all installed ones that don't work very well. So there's a kind of a tip for you when you do go to install any extensions. It's the same as installing them on your mobile devices. Is wherever possible, look for the original manufacturer for whatever extension or add-on that they've created for it, as opposed to others, because others will create them as well. Especially this is true in things like for Google Docs and in Google Drive. You'll find a variety of different applications that'll give you access. I always look for the original manufacturer as much as possible, and that reduces the amount of that reduces the likelihood that it's a kind of a lemon. But I don't feel like Google has the kind of control over their extensions that say Apple exhibits over Safari or over the things that are like in the App Store for the iPhone. I think they're far more aggressive than Google.
All right. Let's see. We had a few questions on removing passwords. Off topic. Your mixer is missing. Have you moved away from using one? What are you using now?
I actually, you can't see it. I've moved to the Rodecaster Pro, which is sitting on my desk. It's right there right now.
No, you're not going to do switching of screens or switching of your
I can't
video.
show it to you. I'm not going to show it to you. I'm not even going to try.
All right. Are the Norton's apps enough, or do the other apps work better? I'm assuming
if you're talking about for security, I don't use those sorts of security apps. Actually, we're going to be talking about security next week. So things like antivirus software and stuff, I still don't use it on my Mac. I just try and use common sense and passwords and don't open bad emails and that sort of stuff. In the Windows world, I don't know if you still require them or not. That's something that I'm doing some research on for next week as we talk a little bit about security. But I tend to not like using those apps because those are tools that do slow your computer down a lot.
All right. Sorry, I'm copy and pasting questions here. Are you aware of an add-in bookmark manager?
No, that's a good suggestion. If anybody has one that they use, drop it in. Bookmarks are becoming less and less kind of relevant because people are tending to use search a lot more, and so bookmarks are kind of sliding by the wayside to a certain extent for most of us. but I'm not aware of a good bookmark manager. No.
I want to use Ecamm. Do I have to use it with Safari?
Ecamm is a downloadable app, even though it's SaaS, even though it's a software as a service. So you don't need to use any particular browser. You don't need any browser. Ecamm launches independently of browsers.
All right, so let's see. Does LastPass allow you to change passwords in mass, like a group altogether?
Well, no, it will allow you to change your master password. It will tell you when all of your passwords are, how long, the ones that are getting stale, and remind you that you should change one. But it won't do as far as I know, there's no way to do a bulk change because you're going to have to approve each one as you go. What it does do is it does automatically update if you choose to ask it to update a site, but you do that one at a time. At least I've always done it one at a time. Somebody can correct me if they know LastPass more intimately than me, but I wouldn't trust personally. I would shudder at the thought of going and having all of my passwords updated at the same time. I just see a world of hurt potential there. It's something that's worth taking the time and going through and updating your passwords not necessarily manually, but one at a time.
What are your thoughts on CIRA, Canadian Shield?
The Canadian Internet Registry Association. I'm not too sure the specifics of what that question is about, but there's always a little bit of political conversation about the naming conventions and the .ca versus .com versus .net. So I'm not too sure what they're referring to, but I don't follow that too closely.
All right. There seems to be fewer extensions for Safari. Is this because of Apple's closed developer world?
I would say so. You know, people aren't there. They're certainly all of the major ones that I've ever looked for have been available in Safari, but Safari is a Mac only or an iOS only device. So a lot of people now, remember, a lot of people might not have made an extension for Safari, but they might have made something called a progressive web app. I didn't talk about this in the webinar because it would have gotten a little bit too long, but I will talk about it now. So progressive web apps are when you've got an application like Starbucks. Starbucks, you can go to the Starbucks site and you can access your account if you have a Starbucks account, and you can access it normally just in the browser. But if you download the app on your phone, look, I'm miming holding a phone here for you, but if you download the app on your phone, you are actually accessing the same web site basically, but it's called a progressive web app. So it's been encapsulated into its own application. You're not in a browser, but you're in the web app itself. And so that is, typically speaking, I think you'll find a lot of the holes in Apple's Safari mix will be filled by progressive web apps, where you'll search in the App Store and you'll download the Starbucks app, or you'll download the DoorDash app, or some other app that is really just the front end to a website, but you don't need to use the browser. Instead, you use the progressive web app.
All right. Do you think the LastPass extension for Chrome will work in Edge?
Yeah, I do. You download it at Edge, but yeah, I don't know if I installed mine in Chrome in Edge, but I think I did already when I tested it out, and it was fine.
All right. Can you order extensions so they can be used most frequently? So like left to right, like the ones you use.
Yeah, you can drag them and move them around on your within most browsers. Yeah, certainly I can here.
All right. What did you say about using in place of bookmarks? Can you just repeat that? Earlier you had said something about instead of using bookmarks, using something else.
Search. People just use search. Just the predictive text is a big thing. And so a lot of people just don't bother bookmarking anymore, but they just start typing in and then the predictive text and the history kind of takes over.
All right. Does Evernote and Grammarly extensions work in the Brave browser that you know of?
Yep. Perfectly. And if you check out the video, I think the video, it's been a while since I made the video. I made it before my holidays, but I think we show that in the video, the Brave browser video on YouTube.
Do you have a favorite? Oh, sorry. Do you have a favorite screen capture app?
I use Snagit, which is a paid for app, But there's a lot of people that like, there's a few other ones out there that a lot of people like as well. Awesome Screen Capture and a few others. So it's really the one that you're most comfortable with, but I use Snagit, which is part of the Camtasia family of products.
All right. I'm using an Apple iPad Pro with Safari and Chrome. The iPad OS doesn't support extensions in Safari or Chrome. Is that something that could change in the future? Are you familiar with that?
Say the beginning again.
Yep. So they're using an Apple iPad Pro with Safari and Chrome. The iPad OS doesn't support extensions in Safari or Chrome. Is that something you think will change in the future?
Oh, so we hear this conversation about desktop class browsers on the iPad, and I'm running my iPad here right now. I'm watching it, looking at it here. That simply means that the browser kind of works basically that for things like web apps, full environments, it works very well. For extensions, for adding extensions to it, they haven't figured that out because that integrates with the operating system. And so pure extensions aren't going to be available to you in the iPad, not of the type that we're used to. Web apps will be, but not the extensions. So it's kind of funny that the basic ones, the ones that we started with, are not going to be available on in the tablet versions, but the more advanced ones are. I hope that makes sense. I see a question. Sorry. One of the reasons that I got distracted was I saw the Sierra Canadian Shield question. Here it is. Albert said, Canadian Shield is a malware phishing blocker at the DNS level provided by Sierra. I haven't checked it out. So what it does is it's a type of security system that will actually block sites for you.
All right. What are your thoughts on Google Keep?
Well, Google Keep is a task manager, which is very simple, and it really integrates very nicely with the Google ecosystem, but it's a very task manager light. It doesn't have the advanced features of a Todoist or even anywhere close to the kind of project management that you would get in a tool like Asana. But as far as just managing your tasks, it's a really good solution, especially if you're using the rest of the Google ecosystem.
All righty. I'm just going back because I think I got everything. I'm going to have to wear my readers next week.
No kidding. Richard says Snip is his favorite software capture. Yes, indeed.
Let's see. Yeah, I think there were some repeat questions. So you covered those. And let's see. Yeah, I think we're good. So, like somebody mentioned, they use Trello for bookmarking and Evernote, which is great.
Yeah, I use Snagit all the time. They're commenting here.
Like Snagit, yeah.
Comment Keith says, if you use LastPass, be sure to run the security dashboard and follow up and clean up identified passwords. Yeah, it tells you all the ones that you use, multiple them, how many things you have with the same password, etc. Good stuff.
Our friend Scott is actually asking, so I'm glad that you're safe, Scott. Has been evacuated from Hurricane Laura. I've been doing everything on my Android phone. I miss my PC. Do browser extensions work the same on mobile? That's actually a great question.
No, well, it's the mobile version of the browser is always going to be limited, as I said earlier. So web apps will typically start to work, certainly like in a like Apple has really upgraded the quality of the Safari browser. And so I can use the Safari browser far more rigorously than I ever could before with the earlier version of the browser. So things like Gmail, using Gmail in the browser, really great on the iPad. But it would be the same. No, it isn't even the same. In Android, you don't have any browser that's the caliber of Safari yet in mobile. I imagine that Chrome will eventually get there, but we aren't going to ever, at least I don't see any time in the future that we're going to have access to the legacy add-ons and extensions.
All right, let's see. Is Brave and DuckDuckGo available in the Apple ecosphere? Sorry.
Yes, yeah, you could. Well, Brave works just fine on iOS, on Apple OS, which I have here. I'm running it on mine. And DuckDuckGo, you can choose in any browser.
Will the Apple Silicon have a browser impact? What are your thoughts?
Don't know. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I imagine Safari will still be the one of choice, and it'll probably. One thing we see in the desktop class marketplace is we see Apple as an operating system, moving their operating system closer to the mobile operating system as opposed to bringing the mobile operating system and bringing it closer to the desktop. So I think we'll see that kind of moving towards the middle continue.
I think we're at I think we're at a wrap.
Oh, good.
Question.
It felt good. This was fun. Thank you so much. How many people we still have on? We still have 300 people on. Oh, good Lord. Thank you so much, everybody, for kind of working through this first of our new Webinar Wednesday version. Is this 3.0 or 4.0 of Webinar Wednesday?
I don't know, but I'm gonna be back. Like, now it's my routine, right?
Yeah. But I liked it. I think we got to figure out a better way to handle the questions as we put them through, so that we make sure we don't miss anybody. But overall, I think winner chicken dinner as far as delivery on YouTube Live. I thought it would be, and I'm very happy. Next week, I think we're going to be trying another of the live streaming apps. We're probably going to be trying Restream, but it won't make any difference. Now, as we switch around the tool, it won't make any difference to you folks. And we'll be able to test out lots of the different live streaming options. Once again, thanks so much to all of our patrons. Your guys' support is literally the wind beneath our wings. April, You are a rock star. Thank you so much for all of the effort and putting everything else together. Remember, folks, if you haven't registered, if you haven't given us your email address, give it to us if you want the follow-up email, which will include how to unentangle your browser from existing passwords. At least I hope I'll be able to get that done. I'm going to work on that right now. And that's it. Till next week. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Have fun storming a castle.
Bye, guys.